Hey everyone, here are some of my personal takeaways from Matt Meighan's episode of Artistry with Heart. We had a fantastic conversation and I can't wait to dig into some of the things that leapt out at me and that I've been integrating into my own musicianship and artistry. I loved what Matt said about this differentiation between being famous and being known, and that they're not necessarily exclusive, but they're not the same thing. Being known is what I believe we all deeply crave. And sometimes, we vicariously then become more famous or more popular because, our music stands out to more folks, or because of a timing thing or a place thing or a people thing. But behind all of it, the whole reason why we create is to be known and to let our innermost beings be shown to others. So his whole concept of being like, yeah, there is this differentiation between marketability and, authentic artistry. And the need to be famous is not the same as the need to be known. I loved that concept that he made, that we are looking for a heart and soul connection with music that totally transcends other people's perspective of us. Another great component of our conversation was how Matt deals with performance anxiety, or how he has taught his students to address it. One thing that stood out to me is the way that he normalized it, right? He talked about how performing is stimulating, right? Getting out in front of people and sharing what you know, it takes a lot of courage. And when you can name it and say, instead of saying, I'm nervous, saying, oh, I notice that my heart is beating faster, my hands are shaking, I'm starting to sweat. Acknowledging the physiological symptoms rather than this overarching foreboding, I'm nervous or I'm anxious, can help you pinpoint what you're feeling. And then you can say, oh, well, I can play with a heart that's beating faster, or I can play with shaking hands, or I guess I'm gonna just play nervous today. Another thing that he suggested to help with performance anxiety is once you step up to the mic or you sit down at the piano, take 3 deep breaths before you start to play or sing or even speak. Great reminder. I always need the reminder to breathe. Last thing that he mentioned about working with performance anxiety is translating the audience as this sort of conceptual being to the individual. And he does that by going and having a conversation with as many people as he can before the show. I am with him. I'm also an introvert and it stresses me out to make small talk with strangers. However, when you start to talk to somebody, all of a sudden you start to get to know them and they no longer become strangers. They're people that have a story, that ended up in this same place as you for a reason. And getting on stage then feels more like a heart and soul connection than performer, audience, dichotomy. It's really that concept of breaking the proscenium. A great takeaway that Matt said in his conversation was this concept of the inner critic versus the inner editor. The inner editor is always trying to make things better. It's that voice that says, I think that line could be stronger. The inner critic says that you're too much, you're too this, or you're not enough that, right? It speaks in extremes, and that's how you can recognize the inner critic. He talked about it like when you think about an inner editor, like they're in the ring trying to improve the musical line. They're in the ring trying to make that scene of the movie as poignant and powerful as it possibly can be, right? It seeks to improve. But the inner critic really is just what tells you, hey, should you go see that movie or not? Should you listen to that musician or not, right? They're not the ones doing, they're the ones judging. When you know who you're hearing from, then you can start working with it more rather than being paralyzed by like, oh my God, you're right. Like I suck. You may feel that way, but I'm going to let you go rest in the other room while I finish writing this song. And when it's time for me to actually perform this, I will ask your opinion. But for now, give me some peace. Last component that really stood out to me about Matt's conversation on Artistry with Heart was his song Shadow, which was inspired by this concept of the muse, and he goes fully into depth with this in the episode. But I love this idea of the muse not necessarily being something or someone that comes and goes, that the muse is always there, that the light of inspiration is always there. It's us that come and go. And that our shadow is a reminder that even when we step away from music or when we walk away from inspiration for any number of reasons, the light behind us, that inspiration, will always be there to welcome us back, and the shadow is the reminder that it's there when we leave. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Matt Meighan's episode of Artistry with Heart. Definitely leave your comments in the comments below or send me a direct message. I would love to hear from you. Get in touch with Matt and check out his class, Songwriting is Truth-Telling. He has such a powerful way of facilitating the creative process, and I could not give his course a high enough recommendation. Thank you so much for being a part of the community. Let me know how I can support you, how this community of musicians can lift you up and help you dive into the authentic voice that the world needs you to share. So in the spirit of sharing original music, I'd like to share a piece that I wrote when I was in Matt's class over 7 years ago. And it's a piece called Highs and Lows. It was inspired by a poem that Matt had us read by Mary Oliver titled Wild Geese. And it's just an incredible poem if you haven't already checked it out. So here is a clip of me performing. I'll just share a little bit of that video and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for being with me today. We'll see you next time.
Be